And I'm back with another video where I'm gonna swatch the beautiful colors that Denise put together with DaVinci. I'm gonna focus on the first row. I thought of doing all the swatching in one video, but then I thought it's gonna just be a little too long. So the top row is in this video, and then sometime this week I'm gonna look at the second or the earth colors. And I'm gonna move this to the side and start with the beautiful our light yellow. And I'm gonna keep this right here at the top. And I have my swatch card made out of the Arches paper. I used Denise's style. I put the pigment number and the color name, and then I draw a dark line with the Sharpie marker just to see how transparent or opaque the color is. And I'm going to start with this Our Light Yellow, and I'm going to use a Master Touch round number 12. And the way I swatch my colors, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, as long as you get all the information you want or you think you might need. You can either wet the paper and apply the color, or just go in and get full pigment. Again, these paints are very easy to re-wet. I don't spray my palette ahead of time. I just go in, and I think this time my brush was a little dry. And this is it, a nice bright yellow. It's very transparent, I think. We'll see at the end of this test more information about how these colors behave. This is a very beautiful primary yellow. And to the end of the card, I'm just going to add more water and water it down. Another thing I was interested lately is the value of colors, like how dark it can get or how light. I mean, all of them, because they're watercolor, they're all going to get pretty light if you mix water in them. So this is the beautiful Our Light Yellow. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to come back and add a second coat. And we'll see how dark we can get this color. And I made a bit of a mess. I was debating if I should cut my cards ahead of time or just go ahead and paint on a one piece of paper and then cut them. But this is what works for me, so this is what I'm going to do. The second color is the beautiful Hansa Yellow Deep. And this is Pigment Yellow 65. And this is probably one of my favorite yellows. I have a hard time painting with yellow just because I can never get the right color for the shade. I try mixing it with its complementary, which is a purple, and I get a brown that's not the best looking brown. So I'm still perfecting my technique working with yellows. I might make a video about it. I'm gonna look on YouTube, look at different art books to see if they have any suggestions. Not a problem I have working with yellow. I feel like I'm losing some of the glow of the color, some of its transparency. I tend to maybe over mix it, add different colors in it. But this is the beautiful Hansa Yellow Deep. And again, I want to let this dry and come back and add a second coat. And that's all the yellows, bright yellows in this set. And then we're gonna start with the reds and red violets or pinks. This is a DaVinci Red PR254. This one I'm gonna wet the swatch card first, and then grab some paint. This is a very, very bright red, almost like a it's a primary red. I would say I find it slightly on the warm side, but very little. Pyrrole red. I'm gonna compare it after they dry some with my swatches from different colors. And here you see I kind of forgot that I wanted to water it down to see how this color looks. I am gonna try to do some mixes, and the mixing part, it shows you the tinting strength. That's another thing with watercolors. Unlike other paints, and I think even acrylics and oils, different colors have different tinting strength. You need to mix them in certain proportion so you can get the shade you want. And there are plenty of videos that describe that on YouTube. I'm not gonna go into details. I just wanna look at these beautiful colors. And this DaVinci Red looks like it's slightly opaque. And that's another thing, classifying color as transparent, semi-opaque, opaque. I believe it's important depending on what kind of paintings you want to do and what kind of effects you like from your watercolors. But as a beginner, I'm just gonna look at the actual shade of mixing properties for now, and then later on, depending how I feel about different results I get, I'm gonna separate my colors and try different techniques and see if they work. Next is Alizarin Crimson Quinacridone, and this is a PB19. This one I'm gonna go straight, and you get a deeper color if you apply the paint from the pen on a dry paper. That's what I've learned so far. If I wet the paper prior, the color spreads out nicely, but then I feel like it gets watered down. Probably one of the most difficult aspects of watercolor is knowing how much water you need to get the color intensity you want. My paintings so far, they seem to be very washed out, but this alizarin crimson, it's really, really pretty. It looks like transparent. I see some deposit, but not a lot, and I like how it flows in water. You get an even spread. One video I found at one point, and I wish I kept a record of that, was about painting with reds. The person in the video explained that painting with red is difficult because red is actually a darker value. It's kind of a medium value to start with. I couldn't really remember the explanation or everything, but I wish I could find that video, and I'm gonna look for it and see what tips they offer. Red is one of my favorite colors to paint with. I feel like it's easy to get light shades and darker shades, and the shadows are really pretty. Next in Denise's palette is Perylene Maroon. It's PR179. And again, I'm going to go on the dry swatch here. And this is really, really nice if you like maroon colors, red colors. It's a very pretty color. I don't know what I would use it for. It looked like something that would, you can draw certain animals maybe. But even flowers, I could give it a try. Very kind of a regal color to me. And you get a very nice value, dark value, and then you can gradually, in its lighter shade, I would say I never seen a Potter's Pink in real life, just what I've seen swatched on YouTube. But the lighter shade almost reminds me of a Potter's Pink. So maybe portraits, if I ever feel brave enough to try a portrait, that would be a good color to mix for skin tones. Let me know what you think. So this is Perylene Maroon. And the colors are starting to dry. This is the Aerolite Yellow. And you can see a little better on this dark line. And there's some deposit, but not a lot. And it's still vibrant and bright. The Hansa Yellow, deep. Again, this is still drying. It looks really, really nice. Next is the beautiful Red Rose Deep. And if you've seen my previous video where I'm trying to paint something without even swatching the colors, without getting to know how they behave and how they react to one another, I used this color, the Red Rose Deep, and I believe I said this is the color I think I'm gonna run out first. And I can't wait to swatch this, and I'm gonna compare it with a similar color that I have from Cerulean. I think they use a different pigment, which is not as light fast, I don't think, than the PB19s. But then again, light fastness is something that I just recently started looking into it, because yeah, that's a whole another science. And depending on what do you plan to do with your painting and with your drawing, it can be important or not less important. I want to try to add as much as I can. There we go. You can get a nice gradation. Again, this color can get really dark, and then the watered down version, it's still very pretty. One color I was not curious to try or to look at is the Opera Pink. I know a lot of people like that, and they, especially for art journaling, they love to use it in that because it's not light fast. I haven't tried to do art journal. I have a trouble with that. I don't know when to stop or how much to add, and I feel like they look too rugged, too unfinished for my taste in art. I want to dry my table here, try to keep it clean. And we are moving towards the blues, and we're gonna start with this DaVinci Violet. And this should be a pretty dark color. Yeah, it reminds me of a dioxazine violet. Very intense. It can get almost black. You can barely see the line I'm drawing for the transparency test. And then of course the watered down version. There it's, you can make it as light as you like. Purple is another color I have a hard time using in my paintings because I feel it stands out so much. I don't know how to use it with other colors. So that's something I need to play with and figure out how to use violet in my painting. Now I'm almost running out of space here. Letting my swatches dry. The next set is the 4 blues that are included. Actually 3 blues, 1 turquoise. To me, turquoise, depending how much green or yellow it has in it, I almost consider it as a blue. But let's not get ahead of it and start with the Indent blue. And I'll use this one. Indent blue is probably one of my favorite shades of blue. Not my favorite colors altogether. And this one I bought the gram PB60, which they call it anthracnone blue, and I cannot wait to compare it with DaVinci's. The gram one, I feel like it has a slightly grayer tone, but this is also very, very pretty, very intense color. Very dark. I do want a little darker on the top part because I'm gonna add, once this first coat is dry, I'm gonna add a line, kind of like a glazing, and I want to see how dark, or if it changes once it's dry. For the rest of the card, I'm just gonna wet this bottom part, and you still get a nice blue. I could use this for sky in this watered down version. I would have no problem with that. So the beautiful Indent blue. Set that aside to dry. Next one is PB29, and if you watch videos about colors, this is one of the favorite blues, or the most used blues by artists. I like Dr. Otto Cano videos and her Ultramarine Blue. I think she made her own color. And then from the Colossal Color Showdown, one of her series, she compared different ultramarine blue, and I believe Graham's one stood out and was among her favorites. This is really nice. The only one ultramarine blue I have, I think it's French ultramarine from Daniel Smith. I bought it in the basic set, which gives you 2 of the primary colors, 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues. And I was not very impressed. I don't know if it's because it was the French ultramarine, and I don't know what's the difference between the French and the regular ultramarine. I think I was disappointed with its tinting strength. I was trying to use it to mix different colors, and I felt like I need a lot of the blue to get the shade I wanted. But yeah, ultramarine blue, your standard blue, I guess. It's strange how much I like Indent blue and how little I care for the ultramarine. And you say, well, they're both blues, but it's something about this one that I don't know. I still have to learn how to use it, I suppose. Next one, a color I'm very curious about, is this cerulean blue hue. Excuse me just a second. Because it has pigment white. My other experience with paints that have white in them, I bought a Holbein blue. I think Horizon blue. We're gonna look through my swatches in just a little bit and see if, how they compare. And surprisingly, I didn't care much about that, the color with the white in it. I tried in mixes. I got very powdery colors, very pastel. The swatch itself from the Horizon blue, it's nice, it's very pretty. I based my purchase based on that swatch, and I didn't check to see the composition of the paint. So this particular color mixed with white, I was really intrigued. I wanted to see how it looked. It does look like a lighter version of phthalo blue green shade, like if I would add white in the phthalo blue, that's what it would look like. I can't wait to mix this color because that's where the white stands out to me the most. And the way I realized that with my Holbein tube is I mix it with Perylene red. And usually if you mix the blue with a red, you get a nice black or deep violet. But in this case, I got it's pretty gray, but I realized the impact of the white added to the color. It's a nice blue. I can see how I could use this to paint skies, just straight from the pan. It does have a warmth to it, almost like a aqua. Well, we'll see. I'll let it dry and then we can check. And we're almost finished. This is the color I was waiting for, the phthalo turquoise, and it's a PB16. I have phthalo turquoise from Daniel Smith, and I like very much. And I believe it's two pigments. And I've seen Schminky phthalo turquoise. I don't know how they call theirs, but they have a turquoisey color. And it's just one pigment. But to me, from the swatches I've seen, it looks slightly on the blue side. But this is really nice. It's very close to Daniel Smith. I can't wait to compare it with my swatches. I can see myself using this color. I was working on one of my sketches, and I knew it was Mark Twain's house. It was one trip I took a few weeks ago, to Connecticut, and we visited the Mark Twain's house, and I was impressed with the architecture, with the colors. It's a red brick house, and I wanted to paint it, and the reference photo I used had very dark shadows, and I don't have a black in my palette, so I used turquoise and a pyro red, and I was impressed with the pyro red or permanent red, and I was very impressed with the dark color, a very deep black I got. So this is the phthalo turquoise from DaVinci. It's a very nice color, transparent. I can't wait for it to dry. And last from this top set is the phthalo green. This is one of those colors that I wouldn't use by itself. Like in a landscape, I think it looks too artificial. However, it's a nice green. I'm not much of a green person. I don't know how to, again, red and greens, I can use them in the landscape, but I probably prefer more of the Perylene or a Denise green. They look more natural. So the phthalo green for a landscape definitely needs to be mixed. This is a very nice green. Doesn't get too dark. I can wait to use my color wheel, and my color wheel has some value squares on the side, and I'm gonna check like a relative value of these colors. I've been looking at some value studies, and that's something that I think can really improve my painting and the way I look at the color, and I organize my elements in the painting and the way I choose to paint certain objects. So this is phthalo green, and let me try to make it just a little bit darker right here at the top, because I'm gonna put my second layer, and I just want to see how dark it gets. The gradient, it's really good. Alright, I'm going to take a small break, and I'll come back to do a comparison with my swatches. And I'm back with a color comparison between the swatches I already have. And this is the beautiful Red Rose Deep, and I have here another PB19. It's the Daniel Smith Quinacridone Rose. And you can tell there's a difference. I think the Quinacridone Rose is more towards purple, but this Red Rose Deep is just a beautiful, beautiful color. This is the Helios Purple from Cerulean, but you can tell this is much towards violet. And then the Quinacridone Pink, again, not even close. So this beautiful Red Rose, I don't have other paints that I can compare it with. It looks very unique, very pretty color. Two colors I have nothing to compare them with is the Alizarin Crimson and the Perylene Maroon. And now that they dry off, they look very natural. This is a pretty natural red and a very beautiful maroon color. Another comparison, I have the Daniel Smith Hansa Yellow Light and the R Light Yellow. You can tell this is a PY3, PY97. The Hansa Yellow Light, it's very opaque, and it has to me almost like a greenish tint with and this aerolite yellow is just a perfect yellow right in the middle. I'm gonna try to keep this separate if someday I need to try off. Next is the Hansa Yellow Deep from DaVinci, and I have two other yellows that can be similar. These are both mixes. It's the Cerulean Yellow Deep and then the New Gamboge from Daniel Smith. And first of all, I prefer this being one single pigment, and then the color, it's much softer. It doesn't have that strong bright yellow undertone. I think it's closer to the Cerulean. This New Gamboge is more towards the orange. Next one, and I want to finish with the warm colors, is this DaVinci Red, and I have two PB25, and then I have the Permanent Red from Daniel Smith, and I think this is this DaVinci Red is closer to the Permanent Red from Daniel Smith. These ones are much warmer, not much, but they're definitely warmer than the DaVinci Red, the Pyrrole Scarlet from Daniel Smith, and then this Rose Doré Madder Lake from Cerulean, which is a very nice color. That's all the reds, and then I'm gonna move to one of my favorite colors, the Indent Blue, and I have here Anthracnone Blue from Amgram, same pigment, PB60, and the differences is very minor. I think the Amgrams it's slightly grayer, but now that they dry up, they look almost the same. I couldn't tell the difference. The Amgram paints, I don't know if it has to do with all their shades, but they have a very interesting way the pigment settles in the paper. It's not quite a granulation, but I just noticed it. I don't even know how to call it. And against the cauliflowers, and some colors I know they're prone to cauliflower more than others. I don't really care about that right now. And I'm gonna do the glazing in a separate video, and if you're interested to see that, let me know in the comments to see how they glaze. But that's gonna be later on. Next is the Ultramarine Blue, and this is the French Ultramarine. Excuse me. And you can tell this French Ultramarine, the granulation maybe throws me off. There's some granulation in this DaVinci one. This to me, it's almost Daniel Smith. It's almost like violet-y undertone. We'll see how it does in paintings, but you know, ultramarine. I've skipped over the purple, violet, and I have this Dioxazine Purple by Cerulean and DaVinci Violet. To me, they look exactly the same. Very strong color. It dries a little lighter than I thought, but we'll see how it does in the glazing. And next, I have the phthalo green, and this is a standard phthalo green. I think the DaVinci is still damp. And this is the Schmincke phthalo green. They look almost the same. Might be just a tad yellow on the DaVinci, but not by much. And next, I want to look at this Cerulean Blue that has the PP15 and the PW6. And I have a phthalo blue green shade from Daniel Smith. This is a little more warmer than the Cerulean, and then this is the Holbein Horizon Blue. You can tell, I think, depending on how much white pigment is, the deposits on my dark line right there. So this is one of those colors I don't know what I'm gonna do with, but if you have any tips and tricks on how to use colors with white pigment in them, just let me know in the comments. And the last is the beautiful turquoise. I have a phthalo turquoise from Daniel Smith and the phthalo turquoise from DaVinci. You can see the Daniel Smith is 2 pigments. This is just 1 pigment. Definitely the DaVinci a little bluer than the Daniel Smith. It almost looks like a totally different colors, but they're both transparent, both very nice, and you can find them great uses. And that's it for the first part of swatching Denise's earth-friendly watercolor palette. Come back to see me swatch this bottom row, and this has a lot of earth tones. They might not be as interesting at first sight, but I'm curious to see how they swatch. And